And the weather, a colder day with some strong winds this morning. Showers will move south and then sunny spells developing. Wintry showers in the north and a high of 10 degrees. From Global's newsroom, I'm Simon Conway.
From the case files of Miss Maureen 118212.
You know, the life of a telephone detective is never dull. 1 minute you might be called by a lady.
Brief moment, because something really weird has happened, hasn't it? Cummings goes out the door and suddenly all the culture war claptrap stops, but they have to replace it with something. So in the space of 48 hours we've seen enormous money tree style announcements regarding both the environment and the military. Now you need to ask yourself, well, I say that, you don't need to, I have asked myself whether or not these two announcements would have been made this week if Dominic Cummings hadn't left the building last week, and I just can't believe that they would have done. So it's such a desperate an agenda, but what it really does, there is no plan. There is no plan whatsoever. They move in the space of a weekend from trying to mobilise the nation in outrage at, I couldn't even keep up. The National Trust was doing too much history, I think, because it was going to start publishing details of where some of the money had come from to build these enormous mansions that we all enjoy visiting so much. And a bunch of Tories got very upset about history and historical facts being shared with the British public, because of course facts are, if you like, the enemy of populism. So I think that was one of the things. The BBC, the BBC's awful, all down with the BBC, all coming from Downing Street, all this absolute claptrap. But it had obviously been shown in culture wars to mobilise the base, despite being built on absolute administration, also the Brexit parts of it. And so having got and that is why I feel really about policies that could be quite a good idea, but are now being punted out with a strong air of desperation. 6 minutes after 10 is the time. You are listening to James O'Brien on LBC, and the calls I want from you today will be about Christmas. So what we have is a simple proposition that Boris Johnson is keen to reduce restrictions, to dilute regulations over the Christmas period. He wants us to be able to perhaps mix and mingle on a scale that I think it's probably fair to say the scientists are less keen. And I'm having a bit of a career crisis at the moment, because I find it increasingly ridiculous to have to muster up a very strong opinion about everything. I just don't think that's a normal way to live. Don't worry, when my opinions are strong, they will be as strong as they have ever been. But the idea that I have to have a really strong opinion about this just seems a little bit silly, and I'll tell you why. I could, depending on which side of bed I got out of this morning, I could muster up fairly strong opinions on completely conflicting positions. So if I close my eyes and think of my mum, who I have seen even less in 2020 than I usually do, and work schedule and a young family and a couple of 100 miles distance, and mum not being as mobile as she used to be. All of these things have conspired to create a situation for me that makes me very sad. I don't see my mum as often as I would like to. I have to get up to Kidderminster, for example, whereas until relatively recently she could come to us. And I think of Christmas with a sort of rose-tinted sense, like you do as well. I'm very lucky if your family get on, however big it is. If Christmas doesn't usually end in a massive scrap on the patio, or Uncle Bob knocking 9 bells out of Uncle Bill, then we are actually quite lucky. I do appreciate that. I don't think it's a particularly extraordinary luck. I think most people, most families that even have a sort of Zen togetherness, most, I was going to say Christians, but that's not even true either, is it? I mean, most people who celebrate Christmas aren't Christians, and plenty of people who aren't Christians in the sort of church-going, do unto others as you would have done unto yourself, love thy neighbour school of Christianity. But then again, most people who go to church probably don't fall into that category. Otherwise, refugees wouldn't be a very controversial issue in this country, would they? Or certainly not for a Conservative Party that's full of people who are always boasting about their Christian values. So and plenty of people who may actually worship as Muslims or Hindus or Sikhs or Jews or anything else will enjoy the holiday that is Christmas, and indeed observe some of the traditions, the present-giving traditions. It is, in other words, to coin a very clumsy pun, it is a very broad church. And that's the point, isn't it? So if I got out of bed on this side, I could kick off about how ridiculous it is that you would restrict me from spending time with my family at Christmas. But almost as soon as those words come out of my mouth, I'm ashamed of myself. How many people died yesterday? I mean, please God, things are levelling off, but that second spike they swore blind was never going to come. It's been smacking us around the back of the head now for weeks. And the idea that we should do less, you look at the sacrifices some people have made during this process. I mean, the financial sacrifices are pretty huge, but some people have over 50,000 people have buried family members, partly as a result of the appalling response of the government. But let's not kid ourselves, some of those deaths were unavoidable and inevitable, such is the nature of this virus, this pandemic. So I just, as I muster up that position, that kind of false position of, well, it was not false, it was sincere to start with. Well, that's ridiculous. No one tells me when I can and can't eat turkey. No one will tell me who I can spend Christmas Day with. And I genuinely, I think 10 years ago, I really would have meant that sort of perpetual schoolboy, that never-ending sort of rebellion. No one tells me what to do. I quite like being told what to do if I have faith in the people telling me. What's the alternative? We touched upon some of the alternatives earlier in the week when we spoke to people who think Bill Gates wants to inject them with nano chips designed to control them and turn them off and control the population. When you have no agreed truth anymore, this what can be charming in normal times, this slightly, rebellious isn't quite the right word, this slightly contrary schoolboy attitude to life, nobody tells me what to do, which I was a very, very enthusiastic proponent of not that long ago. In a world where agreed truth has been removed, beginning probably, it's a great piece in the Times today by David Aranovich, probably beginning with the birther movement in America and Donald Trump's embracing of it, when agreed truth has been attacked, when it's on its last legs, almost every opinion assumes an equal weight. So the idea that we shouldn't do whatever we can do to minimise the number of people that die in January on December the 25th, the more I think about it, the more absurd and even downright dangerous it becomes. Since when would the idea of breaking bread over Christmas with slightly fewer family members than we were planning have assumed this sort of mantle of importance? I might be missing something. If I am, please forgive me if I've upset you already, and actually the idea of not all being together at Christmas is a much bigger deal than I'm currently acknowledging. I mean, we usually spend it either at ours with the in-laws and everybody else, or at my sister-in-law's with a similar gathering, but with a little bit more weighting towards her husband's family, and if we can't do that this year, it will be sad. But I don't quite understand And I'm in second gear of sadness. That's a nice swell. So I've got 5 gears of all my emotions. Happiness and sadness most obviously. The sadness I feel at the prospect of having a curtailed Christmas is first to second gear sadness, right? The sadness I'd feel if someone you love died as a result of coronavirus contracted on Christmas Day, that would be gear 5 sadness. Or gear 5 empathy sadness. You know, if it was someone I knew who died as a result of what I did on Christmas Day, that would be off the scale sadness. But let's use that analogy and run with it together today. If I say to you, the sadness I will feel on Christmas Day if we can't do what we were hoping to do will be gear 2 sadness, second gear of sadness. If somebody dies as a result of not being careful on Christmas Day, that would be 5th gear. In the common existence, think of your vulnerable family member, or of course your non-vulnerable family member who may get a terrible case of long COVID, which is really creeping up the national consciousness levels. What's happened as we conduct this conversation? Has it... Okay, I'm going to go there, all right? And again, I apologise if this upsets you, because I don't want to upset you today. And to stress again, on the days when I do want to upset you, I will make no apologies for doing so. But I might be missing some massive issue here, and you know, I can't currently think what it would be. You only see each other every 10 years, or so, but it doesn't have to be on Christmas Day. The contact, the communication, the family congregation does not have to be confined to Christmas Day. You can just wait until things are back to normal, or at least better. I don't get it. And you know, I'm really wary of telling you the word that's been rattling around my head all morning. I gave you a little hint in the little tease that I do towards the end of Nick's show, when I talked about how we responded when Mum or Dad told us they were going to cancel Christmas if we didn't behave, and we'd start throwing our toys out of the metaphorical pram at a rate of knots. But I do look at some of the reaction to this Christmas story, and the word that's rattling around my head this morning is infantilized. We are now an unbelievably infantilized nation. I'm not sure the population of the United Kingdom has ever been more childish in its outlooks. I mean, we touched on one example, people getting cross about history because it might be a bit too true for their sort of mythical, nostalgic views of patriotism. It's pathetic. This word woke that goes around the world 10 times a day before I've even come on air. It's pathetic. We're children. When did we stop being grown-ups? Probably when we started believing lies, I guess, because there is nothing more infantilized than a belief in fairy tales. I suppose Brexit, in political terms, is the biggest fairy tale of the last 100 years. But then again, for me, all problems lead eventually towards that epic con of 2016. So let's park my obsessions and move instead to this question of, very simply, now that I've explained it, maybe you felt your own gears crunching and changing, but now that I've tried to explain it to you, do you agree with me that this fuss about Christmas is just silly? And we should, in the context of COVID-19, we should treat it like any other day. And we should do on Christmas Day whatever it is we would be required by the current tier or the current lockdown situation to do a week before or a week after Christmas Day. Or am I really genuinely missing something? I don't want you to feel silly, because I've been there myself. I was in 5th gear, and then I had a little think and thought, why? 0345 6060 973. Is all the fuss, the clash between COVID-19 and Christmas, just a load of childish nonsense? Or is it actually a rather more serious issue, a rather more serious question than I am currently capable of conceiving, or indeed conceding? Your thoughts, please, on 0345 6060 973. It's 10:70.
This is LBC.
Right now at your local co-op, you'll save a fantastic 20% off on a selection of delicious products from our irresistible range. So you can enjoy a 400-gram co-op irresistible fish pie, while your other half tucks into a 510-gram co-op irresistible margarita pizza. Paul, eat your own. Well, kind of. Co-op. It's what we do. Subject to availability. Selected products. See participating stores for details. Offer ends 8th of December.
This Black Friday, Virgin Media's dropping the base with our pricing that's an all-time. That's right, grab our lowest ever price on the bigger bundle with lightning fast broadband and amazing TV, including Sky channels and BT Sports in 4K Ultra HD at a low $44.99 a month for 18 months. So are you ready to go? Search Virgin Media Black Friday. New customers, Virgin Fibre areas, average speed 213 megabits per second, 18-month minimum term, £35 setup fee, terms apply.
At Nissan, we integrate innovation and technology into our cars to help you live richer. To make your drive a lot less and a lot more. To find the Nissan that's right for you, join us at our Innovation Celebration event from the 2nd to the 30th of November and get an extra £500 deposit contribution towards a Nissan Juke, Qashqai and X-Trail, available at 4.99% APR representative. Search Nissan. Available on PCP Nissan Finance. Order by 30th November. Register by 17th December. Participating dealers only. Excludes Vizia. T's and C's apply. Visit nissan.co.uk.
At Morrison's, selected chocolate pouches are now £2.50 each. Choose from Heroes, Celebrations, Cadbury's Dairy Milk, and many more. Morrison's, making Christmas special. Majority of stores and online, subject to availability. 350 grams to 450 grams. Offer ends 24th of November 2020.
Pets in a Pickle have your pets covered with pet insurance policies as unique as they are. Visit petsinApickle.co.uk. Your face mask. It may look good, but does it offer the protection for others and your loved ones against COVID-19? Copper Clothing have created a face mask that does just this. COVID-19 could live on a normal, unwashed face mask for up to 7 days. But Copper Clothing's copper-infused face mask destroys 99.99% of COVID-19 in a matter of minutes, and it has certified filtration. Which one would you rather have? One that just looks good, or one that's also certified by Colorado State University? Go to copperclothing.com now to order yours. Stay safe.
Shall we sing A Christmas Tale of a Snowflake in the Sky? Now let's go with Lidl's Christmas puddings and mince pie. Subject to availability, selected stores, excludes NI.
Black enjoy unrivaled Premier League coverage and many more unmissable live sporting events. For new and existing customers, visit sky.com today. Offer ends November 30th. New 18-month minimum terms for Sky Signature and Sky Sports. Discount on out-of-contract pricing with 18-month minimum terms. Set up £40. Kit loan at no cost.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC with James O'Brien.
21 minutes after 10. So the calculation is that we would lock down for about a month in January in exchange for having a sort of 5-day holiday over Christmas, which means, in the simplest mathematical terms, it means that those 5 days over Christmas are somehow emotionally worth 6 times more than a day in January. That works, right? You can tell I had a good night's sleep last night, can't you? My brains are flying off in all manner of different... That Gears analogy was first class, and now that's the and I just don't get it. But I am not going to shout at anybody if they explain to me why I'm wrong. Not on this subject. 21 minutes after 10. It would be very un-Christmassy. Ho, ho, ho. Kevin's in Folkestone. Kevin, what do you reckon?
Hello, James. I totally agree with everything you say. I really don't...
You know, that's twice this week the first caller of the programme has said those words. And I mean, delighted though I am to reach the parts that other phone-in hosts cannot reach, Kevin. There must be something I've said that you don't agree with.
No, I've been listening to your week, Boris Johnson, and you know, I mean, your greatest thing was them bozos with the vaccine and the plant.
Back to Christmas. Laughing and despairing at the same time. It was an absolute lesson.
Get a TV show out of that one, James. I'm telling you,
don't want to.
Fantastic.
Anyway, back to Christmas.
Back to Christmas. I totally agree with what you say. I can't see why we should play this game of snakes and ladders, where we get up to 99 and then suddenly go all the way back down that big slippery slope to number 1 again. Because that's what's going to happen, isn't it? You know, after
I think so. I mean, it's almost like they're saying that. So England could face a nearly a month-long extra lockdown in exchange for 5 days release from restrictions over Christmas. Now, I don't have the medical knowledge, and of course Public Health England have said that the doctor who appeared to make this point may have or had misspoke, but the trade-off is clearly in many people's minds already, and it gives Christmas a sort of, well, what you tell me about your thinking? Why do you see this as being a bit sad or silly? Not going to like go nuts about it, but it just seems wrong and a bit sad. Why do you feel that?
Well, what I explained to your reception with the girl there, my wife works on the COVID wards. One night I picked her up from work. Yeah, it's very worrying when I pick her up from work, James, I promise you. And one night I picked her up and I said to her, I said, are you okay?
Yeah.
And she said, Kev, they're all dead. I said, who's all dead? She said, all my patients. I said, how many? They lost 28 out of 32 in one night, James.
Did you?
All my wife gets is a swab up the nose and a swab down the throat, and then she has to come home and I say, I don't even let you open the door. I said, well, I'll open the door for you, and you know, I'll get all your clothes straight into the washing machine and up to the shower she goes, and that's all these people get.
That's an astonishing thing, isn't it? Did you see that succession of tweets from a doctor, I think from a nurse rather, in Carolina? It's gone a bit viral. Oh, you like it, and you must show it to your wife. The nurse is called Jodie, Jodi Doering, Doering. I'm going to read it to you, actually, Kevin, if that's all right with you. So here it is. I have a night off from the hospital. As I'm on my couch with my dog, I can't help but think of the COVID patients the last few days. The ones that stick out are those who still don't believe the virus is real. The ones who scream at you for a magic medicine and that Joe Biden is going to ruin the USA, all whilst gasping for breath on 100% Vapotherm. They tell you there must be another reason they are sick. They call you names and ask why you have to wear all that stuff, because they don't have COVID, because it's not real. This really happens, and I can't stop thinking about it. These people really think this isn't going to happen to them, and then they stop yelling at you when they get intubated. It's like an effing horror movie that never ends. There's no credits that roll. You just go back and do it all over again. Now, thankfully, we don't have the scale of delusion and lies and deception that Donald Trump has created in America. But that, I thought of that when you talked about your wife mourning the death of patients that she's been looking after, and then opening her newspaper or turning on her radio today to hear people talking about Christmas as if it's some sort of cattle trading exercise. It's death that we would be inviting into our lives in return for being able to eat turkey with our loved ones.
Yeah. Even my postman thinks it's a conspiracy theory. And
really?
Honest to God, and I work in construction. I was talking to a guy a couple of days ago. He was a scaffolder, and he said, this is all a government fix. I said, what's it a government fix for? He said, it's just a way to raise taxes. I said, if the government want to raise taxes, they'll just bloody do it. I said, they're ever going to start destroying their own economies all around the world to put a bit of money on your tax.
Don't worry, the more we talk, the more you wonder, don't you, whether or not we are as bad as America. It's just not being endorsed by our Prime Minister in the way that the President of America is part of these lies and these hoaxes.
Yeah.